this is David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I am joined today by our founder and editor, Bill Moore. How's it going, Bill?
Well, if I can figure out how to keep up with all this streaming technology that I've been wrestling with all morning long, great, thank you.
Yeah, technology is continuously making our lives easier,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but this does get kind of interesting. So, yes, we had gotten a invite from Ford for a preview. We can't release the information, the news till today, and is essentially that Ford Pro in their sold 1,000 electric vehicles to a company called EcoLab that makes highly specialized cleaning devices, cleaning products for restaurants, and a lot of other applications. And they're both, they were talking a lot on the call about being 100-year-old companies doing business with each other and this long history. And the initial 1,000 vehicles are rolling out for their fleet are all in California. So I
Okay,
asked the obvious question that that you and I would know, since it's a commercial deal. Now they're doing all F-150 Lightnings and Mach-E's. Now those are the only two
okay.
Fords for personal use that they offer, but we do know that they make their electric vans
Yeah, the
too.
transit van.
But
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
surprised
but
that wasn't
they
part of it.
that wasn't brought up at all. But anyways, my question I posed to them is, what are their expected monthly carbon credits for this? And the CEO dodged the question skillfully, and he said that we're in it to make the world a better place, and we're
Right,
not concerned about the economics of the whole deal. Yet they're doing the whole thing in California, so
right.
I know they're getting like $12,000 a vehicle in subsidies for that. And I almost put into the question, I almost asked, if you don't want the carbon credits, can I have them, please? Because it would be somewhere between 200 and $500,000 per month that they're going to
Wow.
get just for California for carbon credits. Now, if you're in the fleet business, I highly recommend that you check, see what that impact is, because you could save, depending on the size of your vehicle and how much fuel you're taking out of the environment, you can qualify for up to $200 to $500 per month per vehicle in carbon credits. But you need to, be in a position that your commercial business is, switching from diesel or gas or whatever,
Right.
um, to electric. And it was so funny. And I was just like, man, I want to send this message and put this out there, but I didn't do it. I just like, can
You're
I
gonna
have
get
them,
me in
please?
trouble with Ford Motor Company. Doggone it.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, I promise we will use the money for good. You
Yes,
know,
right.
yeah, we'll use the
Absolutely.
money for other good things, and we'll put it into mycelium and how we can remediate oil spills.
Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking about bringing one of my pint jars of oyster mushroom mycelium down here just to share with you and show it to you. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So kudos for EcoLab for making the big move, and for Ford for being part of that. But I just thought that was pretty funny. I'm sure they'll take the carbon credits when they get around there. But that
Oh yeah,
I just thought that was, or maybe he didn't know. I find it hard to believe that he didn't know, though.
yeah. Well, I'm sure you got other. This now. This is what the head of EcoLab or the head of at Ford.
EcoLab. This was the head of EcoLab.
EcoLab. Okay.
Yeah. So they had the head of Ford Pro division, and they had him on there, and they it was a good discussion, but it
Good.
was interesting, to hear what was going on there.
Well,
Anyways,
I belatedly came into this because I saw the multiple article postings this morning and put it on my list of things to add to the RSS stream, and I just haven't gotten around to it because I was wrestling with this streaming thing this morning. So,
yeah, you know, I I am an informed journalist, and I asked informed questions that
good
they
man,
weren't prepared to answer.
good
Uh,
man.
Yep. So he's totally prepared to be a politician. So and he can
Yeah.
dodge
Well,
my
in
questions.
some cases, yeah,
um, anyways, this was kind of interesting. This was an article from yesterday. Despite the bad press, half of Americans still want to consider an EV or hybrid. They just want them to be cheaper. Now,
yeah,
this is kind of interesting. It's a mix, you know. It seems like for most people, it's very rare to talk to anybody that owns an EV that's ever considering going back.
yeah.
They like all the different features that the EVs offer, and so it's different to see what those perspectives are. But when it comes to um, Americans, that we have such a politically divided opinion, we get so much disinformation, and I don't know if it's coming from you know conservatives or Republicans, or if it's coming mainly from the oil industry, or it's just
Oh,
coming from people
probably
who
a
just don't
little of
know.
both. A little
Yeah,
of both.
but we hear the same tired myths
Yeah.
all the time, and and the big one is how long it takes to charge. But the thing is, if you're charging at home, it doesn't
Two
matter,
seconds.
right?
I pull the
And
plug off of the charger. I walk to the back. I pop the little door open where the gas tank used to be, plug it in, and walk away.
right,
5 seconds.
yeah, I'm convinced that even supercharging is eventually, let's say within 10 years, is going to be a 5-minute ordeal.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're already so like the Lucid Air, for instance, it can take a 200-mile charge in 12 minutes. Okay. But eventually, if you had it so that you could charge on both sides of the vehicle, like if you set it segregated into two batteries like you do with dual fuel tanks, well, then you
Right.
could have that to 6 minutes, right? And um, with the new battery tech that's coming out, because we see this all the time, it's like all these
Yeah.
new tech, there's going to be batteries that could take a 200-mile charge in 5 minutes. I
Yep.
mean, you could get it to the point where it's absolutely just as fast to charge as gas is.
As it does to fill up with gas. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
And
I think
probably
that's
and probably as fast or faster than hydrogen. I posted an article yesterday about the cost of the cost of maintaining a hydrogen service station and the amount of
Mhm.
hydrogen that is pumped and so on. And it turns out that there, with what's happening with the battery technology, eventually we hope, the breakthroughs that we constantly see, that the cost to try to maintain the hydrogen fueling structure just doesn't justify the expense. Um, so yeah, it's still a question in my mind what role hydrogen is going to play. Possibly in marine and aviation, but I think for motor vehicles and things, it's going to be it'll probably be battery that'll
Yeah.
dominate.
So what do you think of hybrids? Which company do you think of as the leader in hybrids?
Oh, that well, let's see. My very first hybrid was a Honda. I used to
Hmm.
have the little Honda Insight because that was the first hybrid, basically that was on the market. They actually beat Toyota to the market. But then, I've owned since 2009. I've owned a Prius. So when I think of hybrid, I
Toyota.
think of Toyota. But General Motors. In fact, I just saw an article. I'm going to post a link to later today of dealers, General Motors dealers, asking General Motors to bring back the Volt, not the Bolt, the
Hmm.
plug-in hybrid Volt. And so because they see, there's a reluctance on the part of that other 50% of consumers that don't want to go fully electric, who might be interested, would be willing to go with something that offered them an electric and a gas option. So
Well, I think that's just a natural transition because I think if you don't know what's going on, the plug-in hybrid doesn't seem so scary. But as we said a lot of times too, you've also got the issue of renters. And even a plug-in hybrid doesn't even necessarily solve the problem for renters, but a regular hybrid would,
Yeah.
you know. And so everything's an improvement. But so in the US, shoppers considered Toyota as their top brand to look for when looking at something that's some type of with some type of battery or electric power in it.
Right. Yeah. What?
And Tesla was number two, and I thought that was kind of interesting. But Te- Toyota probably has the biggest range of vehicles selection in the
Yeah.
plug-in hybrid space by
Yeah.
far.
I'm I'm
And
I'm I'm always surprised because I don't follow Toyota that much, that closely much anymore because they haven't had a lot happening on the strictly EV side of things. And of
mhm,
course, Tesla dominates. It runs away, from everybody else in mind space, as far as press space.
well,
But they've got every time I get out this. Oh, I didn't know Toyota made a hybrid version of this. So it's good to see.
yeah, well, Toyota really in the US, I think only has the Busy Forks SUV as their
Yeah.
um, EV, and they're not even in the top 5 in sales. I mean,
Oh
it's
no,
in
they
the
go.
US, it's Tesla, then Hyundai/Kia, then I think Chevy, then Ford,
Yeah,
and
what was it? I think I just posted it earlier this morning. There's a list of the top selling battery electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles in California.
mhm.
And right below the Model Y and the Model X is Volkswagen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
The ID4 is that popular? Or
yeah,
what maybe there's others too, but the ID4 is the only one I really think
yeah.
of
It's an
much when I
ID4. Yeah,
yeah. Um, it's funny too, here in Nebraska, I don't know if I've ever even seen an ID4. When I was last in Florida, I saw them all over the place.
yeah. There are some here. The
Yeah,
way
I'm sure they are. It's just
yeah, the Sierra when they held Earth Day last year. A local ID4 driver, brought his over. So yeah, there's at least one that
yeah,
is here. So
let's talk about real quick. Let's talk about what's going on the EV World website.
oh
Let's
yeah,
see
let's do
here.
that.
Let's see my window.
I was pulling my
Share.
hair out as you can tell, all afternoon yesterday trying to get this dang thing to work. So
Yeah,
you
so
go to news, and then you click the
daily dose of
daily
Tesla.
dose of Tesla.
All
And
right.
what I did was is I wrote some code that goes into the headlines in our RS stream,
Mhm.
and pulls out all the headlines where there is a reference to Tesla.
Nice.
I've been playing with trying to get it to do Musk and trying to do Cybertruck, but it gets a little confused by that. You can tell I'm an amateur PHP programmer if you look real closely. But we
Right.
got it working because when we're adding 60 to 150 story links a day, I'm sure a lot of those Tesla stories will get lost in the clutter. So I thought, well,
Right.
it would be fun to have something where if somebody is really keenly interested in following what's happening with Tesla, we've given them a link there and given them a really nice ticker with information regarding the financial health of the company that's beyond my pay grade. Um,
Oh yeah, I get it. Well, I like this because you do a nice job. You put what category the discussion is in, like this top one here in California factories under finance, North America, and it was released today. So today it's
yeah,
today's news article, and yeah, that's quite a few. So we had one so far, just today so far, and it's only lunchtime. You've had three Tesla articles, and then we go to yesterday, the 29th. Oh God,
yeah, it's a bunch of them.
trying to
And then
count them.
it rolls into the 28th, and I'm trying to
It was
solve
15.
that problem. So I want it just to be specifically for a day, and I haven't. got the code tweaked to the point where I want that to happen, but we'll get there.
Yeah, you had 15 just for yesterday on just Tesla. It's amazing how many
Yeah.
articles come out on them daily. And that's a cool new feature that you added onto the site. Now, let's talk about this, the switch to electric vehicles disrupting workforces worldwide. Now, the European Association of Automotive Suppliers forecasts a loss of 359,000 jobs related to internal combustion engine powertrains, but in the years 2030 to 2035, as because they're phasing out gas cars in the
Right.
EU completely as far as new car sales go. And I know the UK is phasing them all out by 2035. Is that the case in any
Although
of the
there's
other
probably
countries?
some wiggle room there.
Yeah. Well,
There,
that's the plan.
yeah.
But governments worldwide are thinking hard about how to cushion impacts from the shift. Now, obviously, there's hopefully going to be jobs building EVs. I mean, we're still just talking cars. There's still a car. It's just that
Yeah.
maybe an EV is less complicated to build than a gas car.
Well, what's interesting is I came across a study, oh, this has been several weeks ago now, that basically said that when they began to analyze this, it looked like, in fact, there would be more jobs created building EVs in the total scheme of things. Through the life cycle of the vehicle, that there would be ultimately more jobs created. That's one study. Another study will come probably with a different conclusion. So, yeah, there's going to be some impact on if you're not building. If you're out building transmissions for a Volkswagen, might get transferred to the electric motor division, or you might be taking an early buyout. So it's hard to say.
Well, and you put in the clickbait title that it was going to put farriers and saddle makers out of work too. And
Yeah,
it's really funny how, we probably could go back and find articles from 120 years ago
I
about
bet
how,
easily, yes.
yeah, about how all these different occupations are being hurt by the transition to cars from horses. And cars certainly were disruptive to the horse crap problem. I always tell people, hey, cars were the solution to the horse crap problem. Now we've moved on to gas. Electric is the solution to the gas problem.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I found, there's some YouTube videos where people would take the old footage from the early 1900s, that kind of, jittery because they were hand cranking, you know, the cameras and things, and they have used AI to speed correct them and to colorize them, and I kind of enjoy watching those because you're seeing a world where the world was then in transition, where you had horse-drawn trolley cars and guys, people were still riding in carriages, but then alongside them were people in these very early open carriage style motor vehicles, going down the street and people walking and things. And one of those, I actually saw a guy who was who was scooping up the poop
Oh,
by the horses. I thought, oh, that guy's job was going to be gone fairly quickly. So,
I bet there was a lot of people in that occupation too.
yeah,
I mean, even you look at the people who work for Budweiser, that go behind the Clydesdales when they tow that in parades, and there's
yeah,
always a few people behind them,
cleaning up.
and man, that is some massive horse crap too when they lay it out there. It's like I
Well,
feel bad. I mean, it's probably heavy.
I think I remember reading something like the average draft horse that was in the city urinated 3 gallons of pee a day.
Hmm.
One horse, 3 gallons of pee a day. So where did that go? That doesn't include the fecal matter that came out the back end. So
Yeah, it used to be stacked 40 stories high. Were you the one who was telling me about New York City? The reason all the houses are elevated, you have to take a staircase up, was so that they elevated out of the horse crap up on into the house.
probably, well, I don't recall, but that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's really hard to fathom, where life has gone in 120, 130 years and what, changes have happened in transportation.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's interesting because the labor unions are, trying hard to find ways to get these people retrained,
Yeah.
reskilled, upskill some of these people so they can have other jobs. There, so there's 13 million jobs in Europe's auto sector, and but they're not all going to go away unless BYD puts them all out of business. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think enough companies or countries are going to put enough tariffs on Chinese made,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
EVs and
you
try to
see,
protect the EU.
yeah, and you saw the comments that Elon Musk made earlier. Was it last week, late last week, or over the weekend, where he's talking about if we're not careful, the Chinese will basically quash, all the automakers.
Yeah,
So
I
he
mean,
said we do need some kind of we are going to. I don't think he's maybe advocating for it, but we're going to need some kind of system to protect all those car making jobs here in the United States. So then you got, of course, the other side of the equation saying, well, let those cars in here. If you want cheap electric cars, let's start letting us buy Chinese electric cars. So it's a question that's again above my pay grade to decide.
yeah. So according to EU statistics, there are about 500,000 positions in Europe that would be wiped out of those 11 million jobs. And they figure they're going to need 226,000, which is slightly less than half of that, for new EV powertrain jobs. So, it was a net loss of about 275,000 jobs, but that's between now and 2035. And that's a fairly long time. I mean, that's 12 years for people to kind of figure out something else.
Yeah. Hey, you
Yeah.
want to comment? You want to comment on a DRS metal? You
Yeah.
jumped in
Well,
here, so hey, thanks for commenting. By the way,
yeah. Well, that it's true that this is you know the case, and I think that that's going to continue. I've heard people kind of on both sides talk about trying to force these Chinese companies, if they're going to do something to sell in the United States, they're going to have to manufacture the cars in the United States. They're going
yeah,
to have to do exactly the same thing the Koreans and the Japanese are doing. They're going to make them here in
set
the
up,
U.S.
set up plants there. Yeah,
Yeah, bring the jobs over here. um, and I get it. I get it. I think battery tech's going to move over here too eventually. And especially now that the sodium ion batteries are becoming something, there aren't any sodium ion battery factories in the United States yet. But considering we have all the materials can be um,
yeah,
easily procured at home, you would think that that would become something for at least some of the U.S. Manufacturers. Not sure what that means about
yeah. Said Japanese.
Japan, but you know, you look at how many Nissan, Toyota plants there are around the country. It's funny, pretty much everybody now makes in the U.S. I mean, you got
Well,
Mercedes, BMW,
yeah,
Volkswagen.
where are all or most of the Hondas made?
I don't know that one.
Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got big plants in Ohio. Toyota has major manufacturing, I think, in Texas. Mitsubishi used to have a facility in the Normal, Illinois area, but I don't. I think that was taken over by Rivian, I believe. So
Oh, okay. Um, Nissan's big in Tennessee and
yes,
in Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah.
Yeah. The Japanese automakers faced tariffs in the 80s. I'm sure they did, but I really don't know
Uh,
what we did to push that. I think
I wasn't old enough in the '80s to know.
you're funny, Bill. You know what's interesting about that? There was certainly at least a consumer and market preference at that time for vehicles made in the U.S. And I think a lot of it is In order to get that consumer preference, they had to make them here.
Well, yeah, I think that was if you recall, and you may not be old enough to recall the original oil embargo in the early 1970s.
I was really young when that
Yeah,
happened.
you
I
were
was
really
probably like
young. Yeah,
6
yeah.
years old. Yeah.
But that was, if you will, that was the catalyst to really stimulate the interest in Toyotas and Hondas and all of that, because they had cars that
Went farther.
that were fuel efficient and a fairly good build,
Mhm.
and that opened the door for them. So whether what kind of tariffs were applied, I don't know. The only thing that I know of is that there was what they called, I think it was the chicken tariff, that basically denied Japanese car makers the ability to build and import pickup trucks. We wanted to protect, Ford and General Motors,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and Dodge's, basically monopoly control of that particular market. So there was legislation that basically was written to deny them that opportunity. But then again, not only did we have the Japanese market making its penetration, but you also had, even earlier than that, Volkswagen with the Beetle,
Mm.
um, and affordable, little import car. Um, so who, I don't know. I think I agree with you. It'll probably end up that we'll see, restrictions that will say, if you want to sell their cars here, you got to build them here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good, policy for the United States, and I think it's a good policy for any country, for that matter, you know, to have some protection, protection rules to facilitate jobs in their own country. And for our last thing today, we're going to talk a little bit about this article. This was on Yahoo Finance, talking about the most anticipated cars of 24. And what's interesting is they get into how inexpensive some of them are. And this is always, one of the big arguments. I don't know how many people are really out buying new cars to start with. Okay. As far as when people go car shopping, I've always been a used car buyer. I never like to buy stuff brand new because
Me
it just
too.
seems
Yeah.
overpriced. Yeah. But anyways, this is kind of interesting. And a lot of the cars have really been down a little bit. Oh, this is kind of interesting. So my father, one of the guys saying, I remember my grandfather, World War II vet, hated the Japanese, and viewed one and wanted to buy a Japanese car. He ended up buying a Toyota 4Runner.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Um, yeah, so I uh I dealt with this. My dad was in World War II, and when I graduated from college, my parents offered to buy me a car, and I wanted a Toyota. I don't think my dad was real happy about that.
Yeah.
No, because he had fought in the Pacific, and it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
yeah, he
He,
did
he
not
was he was
harbor good
dealing with
feelings.
the threat of Japanese industrial
Yeah,
capabilities in the form of Mitsubishi, Zero fighters and artillery and bullets and all that stuff. So
I
yeah,
used to drive a Mitsubishi, and I used to kid people. It's like, "Oh, from people who brought us Pearl Harbor," you know?
yeah,
But anyways, um, but back to this topic here. Let's see. The high cost of EVs may no longer be a stumbling block. Now, one of the most anticipated EVs is interesting that comes on their list. So, for some reason, the Volkswagen ID, just ID, I guess, not just ID4, but there's a different ID
yeah.
model.
There's a series of them. Yeah,
Yeah, has had the most research. And the ID Buzz has a sticker price of 40,000, which puts it about the same price as the Model 3. Has 3 rows to hold 7
yeah,
passengers and unique retro styling of the original VW bus combined with
yeah.
ultra modern tech. Well, that's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
guess if it's going to look like the old buses,
The old old
yeah,
VW hippie bus.
yeah.
Yeah,
And the second most common is the Ford Explorer. Now, I have a really hard time believing this. It says at an affordable 36,760. And I'm like, man, that must be a really stripped Ford Explorer.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I've owned Explorers before, and they haven't been that priced for a long time. So I'm gonna say this is a little behind the times because you go,
Aspirational.
yeah, if you go to look at gas ones, they're in the 60,000s.
Yeah.
So this is certainly something that is a super stripped down version that you could probably order. This is one of the problems though with the whole Ford system when you're dealing with the dealerships. The dealerships want to add their own markup. That 36,760 is probably a pipe dream. You probably even stripped down is probably going to be 45 on a Ford lot. Not trying to disparage Ford because I've owned lots of Fords. I've liked Ford as a company, and my father worked for Ford for a while. And so it's interesting to see. I've always been kind of a loyal Ford person, but when I see some of the that pricing, you know, you know how I am. I always like to look for bias in some of these articles.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one just comes a little harder to fathom. Hyundai Kona has a sticker price of just 24,100. They're not a bad looking car at all. In
No.
fact, of inexpensive EVs, it may be one of the nicer looking ones. Of the most anticipated, there's four models retail for under $50,000. This includes the new Fisker Ocean. That's kind of interesting. Um, the Ocean rivals Tesla in technology and an easy online ordering process, which shoppers can customize and pre-order from the website. And you have your car delivered within 3 months or less. Base model starts at 38. Here we go. Here is the overall list. The top one was oh God, that's not even close. The ID Buzz, 507 million searches versus number two was under 5 million searches, 100 to 1.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, but it's interesting to see Hyundai Kona, an Acura ZDX, Kia EV9, Volkswagen ID.7. It's interesting the Volkswagen's on here twice. Volvo EX90, Fisker Ocean, Polestar 3, and the Rivian R1S. That's
Well,
pretty
those are
broad
cars
scope.
that are coming.
Yeah, well, this
Not
is
anywhere in the dealerships as yet, but you can probably pre-order, I would think.
yeah. I think if more people knew about the Ram 1500 coming out for next year, that's the hybrid, that would, of course, that's not a true EV, but
Right.
it still, I'm hoping that that one catches on a lot because it solves a lot of issues for general contractors making the transition into something that can tow and meet their needs. But anyways, I thought that was pretty interesting. That was a pretty good little show we did today. And you know, um, the dealership markups are pushing away legacy EV buyers. Yeah, so one of the things is that people talk about with Tesla isn't necessarily. I've seen a lot of people post that the reason they bought a Tesla was because they tried to buy from a regular dealer and they just got pissed off, and then they went and they tried the Tesla experience, and it was so simple and easy, and they didn't feel like they were being swindled that
Yeah.
they bought a Tesla, and
Let
it's
me go.
real.
Let me go talk to my sales manager.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't do that. I mean, they barely even give you information at the things. You just go and they give you a test drive and they ask if you have questions and it's like, okay, if you want one, just go online and order one.
Yeah.
That's really
Then
it's
you and a
really a
friend drive down to Kansas City, and you can bring it back. So.
yeah. It's very such a different experience. Anyways, we've kind of gotten long-winded as usual today.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, Bill, thanks again for being on here. And if you've liked our content, please leave us a comment on things you might like to see in the future, and we will be back tomorrow.